Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Paymar, and you are listening to The Big Shift, the podcast that explores the dynamic changes our economies, our politics, and our environments are confronting today and how we cope in the future. Today, we're looking into something we should pay a lot of attention to: our health. And I'm not just talking about our physical health, but our mental health, our emotional health, our ability to live our lives in the midst of troublesome events, instability in our homes, violence on the streets, pandemics, and of course, the impact of climate change. Joining me now to discuss how we might collectively work together to make this world safer and saner is Dr. Tami Roos. Tami was born in the San Francisco Bay Area, spent 30 years in Australia, and now lives, lucky for her, in Hawaii. She received her bachelor's degree in international business from San Diego State University, her MBA from the Monterey Institute of International Studies, and her PhD in Parapsychic Science from the American Institute of Holistic Theology. Tami also recently published a book called Presence to Power. I Am the Gift. Tami, thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate it.
No problem. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me, Jim.
I hope it's nice and sunny out there in Hawaii land.
It's beautiful.
Well, could you give us some perspective about parapsychic science? A lot of people have never heard of it. What's it all about? From what I've read, parapsychology is a field of study that investigates psychic phenomena, including mental abilities such as telepathy. But you are the expert. How would you simply explain so both the audience and I can understand it better?
Sure, and it's a great question. Parapsychic science is really the scientific validation that is meeting spirituality in the middle, so to speak. So it's actually demonstrating the interconnectedness. Science, proving what some people have said for, thousands of years about some of the abilities that we are capable of demonstrating ourselves if we really do the inner work. And that is, in a summation, that is what parapsychic science is about. It is truly the scientific validation. So science meets us and is able to then, it's like anything, any, hypothesis. It's actually proving what is possible.
Is it spiritual? Is it spirituality? Is that what it's all about? Is it connecting to ourselves through some greater force?
There's elements of that in it, purely from the scientific perspective. I mean, there's such a debate about the consciousness, but yes, it is. There's this connection. It's definitely about the ability to tap into these inherent gifts that we have within us. Even if we haven't heard of them, it doesn't mean they don't exist. It's simply we don't know what we don't know. Mm-hmm. And so I have an analogy about electricity in a room, and I'd never really thought about it when I used to try to explain it to people. And I said, but I know there's a switch here and I can turn the light, or I flip this switch and the light's going to illuminate the room. But I'd never really thought about how that worked. I go back into that when I try to, when I'm explaining parapsychic science. It's like, there's some things that, human beings, we really don't have a full comprehension of. But now that we have these technologies that can meet us and start proving some of these so-called paranormal or mental abilities, near-death experiences, vibrational medicine. You've heard of quantum physics now.
Right.
All these physicists, everyone is starting to prove things that for a while there humans thought was absolutely impossible. So that's in a nutshell. Keep it really simple.
It's looking at the world in a whole different way, looking at ourselves in a whole different way, in a way of kind of looking at the way that we connect with each other as human beings, it seems. I mean, from what I've read about it anyway.
Absolutely. And it is. And it's really showing you fundamentally, the infinite possibilities that we do have. And I think that's what's exciting about the field of study. It is so exciting to know that this is possible and that we can make a real difference, and we can make we can actually create a shift in not only our lives, but the lives of others all around us and within our wider communities and in the world.
Well, in your book, Presence to Power, I listened to it on audio, and you focus a lot on meditation. And you say it's a way of moving us individually to a better place uh, inside ourselves. So hopefully that we can then touch others with a connection to our world and the importance of creating kind of a collective way of thinking and bringing ourselves and the world back into sort of balance, which we desperately need. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, 100%. And what you just said is really, what is needed at this time. If we can, people talk about, oh, we just, I wish for world peace, and they make these grand statements. But the reality is, if we don't start by working on ourselves, understanding who we are and creating peace, because peace is an internal experience. Peace isn't experienced outside of us. It's something that we do on the inside. And the one way that I know, the tried and true way, is through meditation, through learning to quiet the mind, but having a relationship with ourselves. And we're on 24/7. Right now, the planet where we go to, our pace of life is incredible, and we've got so many stimuluses that are really drawing our attention way away from our inner world. We've got the internet, TV, your mobile phones, the computers, your iPads. You've got billboards. You've got the traffic. You've got, a lot of high density living, cities, and that all draws us away from the inner world because it's all external. So it's not
Just
until we
yeah, it's constant distraction.
absolutely. And so in a way, you need a disruptor, right? And that
Yes,
disruptor would be sitting,
meditation.
pausing, and meditation.
Right.
And the
And
more you do it, the better the benefit. The
and,
benefits.
and also you start to get addicted to all these screens that you're talking about. I got to check my computer. I've got to check my iPhone 10 times a day. I've got to check my social media. I've got to check in with the news. I mean, it's like it's constant and it's oppressive.
Yeah. And that's where I feel that once you start generating more awareness, you start to realize, hang on a minute, is this really important? Like, why am I doing this? And how am I going to create some better boundaries? Maybe if I'm starting to feel overwhelmed, like you're saying, it is you get drawn in and you do feel compelled. You feel like I have to answer that email right now.
Hmm.
And truly, I know of people that say, I'm exhausted, I'm up, on my company's, it's global. They email me at 3 a.m. and I go, but why are you answering your email at 3 a.m.?
Right.
So there's these things, so yeah, these constant distractions that are there. And that's why we have to learn. And I do think it is a tool. It's a skill set that you learn like anything else. We have to learn to prioritize our health and well-being. As you mentioned at the start of the call, this is about the mental, emotional, physical, spiritual health of us as individuals. And we really need to focus on that. And that's going to be through quieting the mind.
Well, and
Because
it's also pretty apparent that meditation is a very highly effective tool, and it's used by the top 1%ers of the world. I searched out a list, and I was surprised by some of the names because I really couldn't imagine that some of them sitting around and sitting still and meditating. Names like Howard Stern, 50 Cent, Jim Carrey, Jerry Seinfeld, Lady Gaga, Ringo Starr, Oprah, Madonna, Tina Turner, David Letterman, Katy Perry, Clint Eastwood, Make My Day, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Pump Me Up, Julia Roberts, and then executives like Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft, and Mark Benioff, the founder of Salesforce, two of the biggest titans of tech in the Silicon Valley area and Washington State. If these people are doing it, there must be a reason for it.
100%. And that's and look, and I've done a lot of research into that area as well. And it's quite funny because they actually say if they did not meditate, they could not do or achieve what they do, not only on a day-to-day basis, but in their lives. Because meditation actually is a tool that helps you create balance in your life. You get much more effective with your time, your priorities, everything. You go more into a state of flow. And I focus on that because flow is just so, I mean, who goes out their front door saying, like bring it on, like let's go, let's have this day, but it's one that's going to go gracefully and with flow. Not many people experience days like that where they're just kind of like in that zone. But the more you meditate, you find the more you start to experience that state.
Well,
And
if people at that level meditate, I mean, these are big name people. If they meditate, it has to help their careers and their performances. So, what's the secret sauce, so to speak? What do people receive through meditation? What do they gain by sitting in silence?
a deeper connection to not only themselves, but to an inner source that feels truly like they are supported and they're loved and everything's going to be okay. When you start connecting into that space and really quiet the mind, it's like this whole other world opens up for you, Jim. And you realize there is an interconnection here. I am so interconnected with everything around me. And as a byproduct of that, the better that I am feeling, the more that I can actually live my best life possible through doing something like meditation, the greater impact I'm going to have on others and the wider community. And that's why these people understand. They're smart. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're smart. They're
They,
very
they,
smart.
they, they understand. I can't do what I do in a day if I don't give my mind a rest.
Mm-hmm.
So and that's the one thing that I think most people do not understand. If you do not give your mind a rest, how do you expect it to be at optimal health or optimal charge? I mean, I have this great analogy. You take your mobile phone out with you, and how many people panic if you
Yeah.
get down to 15%? Oh, I've got to find a charge.
Oh
I've got to
my!
find a charge,
I got
right?
to get my battery. Oh no!
Exactly. I'm not going to make it through the day.
Yeah.
So what I equate meditation to is recharging your battery so that
Mm-hmm.
when you step out your front door, you're at 100% charge. You're
Yep.
not operating from a less than standpoint, or my battery's going to run out by 10 a.m. this morning.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a mindset. But the sad thing for me, and I will say that because everyone's entitled, obviously, to choose the life they wish to live. But as you said, we have got so many issues occurring on this planet right now that we need to start focusing on solutions and not focus on the problems. And we need to find a way to navigate what is occurring in our lives and the world around us, so that we can have a better life for our children, our grandchildren, and future generations. And the only way that I know that that's going to be possible is if we start truly nurturing ourselves and operating from this space that understands the interconnectedness of what is happening all
Well,
around us.
I love that analogy that you made of putting your cell phone and charging it, and we
Yep.
need to recharge ourselves. I mean, we really need to start looking at that. One very successful businessman, Bill George, former CEO of Medtronic, a huge medical device company. He's now a professor at Harvard. He said, in the process of becoming more self-aware, leaders learn to accept their weaknesses, failures, and vulnerabilities, just as they appreciate their strengths and successes. So, how do you see meditation helping to achieve that?
Oh, that's such a great question. I love it. And what an amazing quote too, from someone who obviously really understands the differences that meditation has made in his life. And I would say, because the body actually, from a physiological standpoint, changes the more we meditate. There's
Mm-hmm.
physiological responses. So the longer we meditate, just giving a really quick synopsis of the benefits, we become more responsive rather than reactive. So if I'm in a reactive state, that means, I'm not going to communicate very effectively. Stress levels might go through the roof. I might get angry and frustrated. The more we meditate, so if you consider this for a minute, we're able to respond. And being responsive means there's almost like a pause before we speak. There's that pause before we take that next breath, going, okay, what needs to be done in this moment? What have I become aware of? And that happens the more that we learn to quiet the mind. As I mentioned before too, our time is much more efficient. We actually start to generate more feelings of empathy, focus increases, clarity increases, like all of the brain actually becomes very cohesive. The left and right hemisphere of our brain aligns, and it's like you're creating a bridge between the two, the intuitive mind and the analytical thinking doing mind. And by doing that, you step into more of a higher state of resonance. Your brain starts actually, it's like you're operating in an orderly fashion. Does that make sense, Jim?
Yeah, it does.
So all of a sudden, if you're operating in this orderly fashion, and you're doing this practice that actually is making, so you show up too. So remember I said to you about the battery. Well, let's go back to that battery analogy. I can't think of anyone who feels good if they're exhausted. Okay. You don't feel in optimal health. You don't feel good if you're pushing the candle at both ends. If you're feeling run down, or if you tend to get sick, or if in terms of just getting a cold, you don't feel good if you don't have patience, or if you feel like all you ever do is get angry. That's not a high state of well-being to be in. So we need to nurture that aspect of ourselves that's going to allow the body to go into that deep healing state, which is what occurs in meditation. We go into a healing state that impacts us physically, as mentioned, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So the number one benefit, which your listeners, I'm sure many have heard of by now, is the reduction of stress and anxiety. Number one benefit to meditation. And one of the biggest precursors we have to poor communication is stress. So then your relationships start to improve. Relationship with yourself, relationship with your partner or your child, your grandchild, your colleagues, your friends, the barista out the corner. Relationships start to improve the more that you meditate. And honestly, I think that's really worthy of being like understood at that fundamental level. We engage in relationships every single day. So many relationships. So imagine if you're operating at a space that your relationships are improving, that you're a better listener, a better communicator, that you respond and you don't react, that you're displaying this orderly functioning in terms of how you're thinking and your clarity, and you're able to get things done more effectively. It's powerful. So your well-being goes up. You feel good.
Your well-being goes up, and those that you come in contact with will probably feel the same.
Absolutely. And the more people that we have engaging in this practice that start to take responsibility for their health and well-being, because it's no one else's job, right? That's the one thing. Meditation is not something that we can, all the benefits that we're speaking about here, you can't go out and go to a chemist, I'm going to buy all these things. You know what I mean? Like, I need a pill that's going to do X, Y, and Z. It doesn't exist. This is an internal job.
Well, let me touch on one other business guy that I've just read a book. He's a brilliant man, Ray Dalio, a billionaire investor, co-chief investment officer of Bridgewater, the world's largest hedge fund with $140 billion in assets under management. And he said, when the pain passes, don't just go forward, reflect, because that's where your progress is. He also said that it helped him a lot in balancing his aggressiveness and preventing him from thinking he's always right. What do you think he means when he says, when the pain passes?
When we meditate, okay, so if when he's talking from that perspective, we can get emotional responses. So we're energetic beings. We are energy. We know that, scientists know that we are all energy. And so in life, we have experiences. And those experiences sometimes can leave an implant, and, we can get triggered and we're not even aware why we're triggered. And there can be that, rush of anger, or it might be sadness. It might be, this sense of turmoil within you, even within a meditation, but it passes. And so what I feel that he's referring to is that if you're able to sit through that and let it clear, okay, so it passes through you, because again, emotions are energy as well. And so you allow that to pass through you, then you can actually sit from a space of almost like clear mind
Mm-hmm.
and go, what was that about? Reflect on it, because then that's the beauty in what he's saying is there's gems in that. Like, oh, wow, that's a pattern. You know what? When that guy did that, that took me back to this moment, which was actually 5 years ago. I'm still hanging on to that. And you start to work out the
And let it
patterns in your
go.
life
Let
and
it
let it
go.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's that moment though of reflection that allows you to see that bigger picture. So then you let it go. But again, imagine how much better are you for that to have that cleared and you're not now carrying that around with you, because that will impact you, right? And those
Right.
around you.
Right.
So
And, and
it's so powerful.
and a painful remembrance of something that might have happened to you as a child that keeps cropping up that you can't get rid of. I mean, if you meditate and you can come to grips with that and let it go and let it float out into the ether, you become healthier, you become more sane, you become calmer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you go into a healing state.
Yeah.
And that's why I keep going back to this, because this is how, we are so, you don't look at a human being and kind of go, oh, my health is one thing or the other. It is all of the above. It is physical, it is mental, it is emotional, and it's spiritual. That is the health of the human ecosystem. And you need to find balance for that. So as you're
Yeah.
saying, if you can release a deeper wound, of course, that's a healing state. That's beautiful.
And you've said that peace is not experienced outside of us, but within us. And that really stuck out to me when I listened to the book. We will not experience peace in the world until we embark on a journey that is focused on our inner world and our healing. Can you explain the process, if you can?
Well, yes, our thoughts are real. A lot of people don't understand that, but Buddha said life is a creation of your mind. And
Mm-hmm.
when you stop and pause, you recognize all my thinking. So if I'm in an optimal state, I could be, really positive, and I'm expecting good things to happen, and I'm expecting to have, nice experiences, or to meet the right people, or that the universe is going to meet my needs, and I'm in a really optimal state. You can feel how that feels even insane. That it's just so much more powerful. It's an empowered state versus a state where you go, oh, this is terrible, and this is awful, and I'm going to focus on all the bad things. What happens to your vibration or energy? It goes
Mm-hmm.
down.
Mm-hmm.
Worry is the number one emotion that drains our life force more than any other emotion. So when we worry, we're actually diminishing, like we're diminishing how well we feel, our energy, our vitality. So this is why it's so powerful to actually get into that state of recognizing I need to be peaceful within me, work on that. And and that it's a work in progress. I'm not saying that this is an end goal, and that that it's something that we all need to practice. I've been meditating since 1999. It's my
Mm-hmm.
non-negotiable, like brushing my teeth. I meditate every single day. So it's
Mm-hmm.
been 23 years. But I can tell you, there's still days when I get angry. There's still days when I feel sadness, frustration. Life, is not supposed to be just rainbows and unicorns, so to speak. It's like it's going to have its ups and downs. But what meditation does is it's a tool to help you navigate. It's a tool to help you generate more peace. So if you go back to my comment about Buddha saying life is a creation of your mind, if we start getting control of our thoughts, and before we go down a spiral, that we realize and recognize that the average human being has 70,000 thoughts a day.
Mm.
Most of those are unconscious. How
Uh-huh.
many of those thoughts are positive versus negative? We go down that rabbit hole. And so say someone's cut you off on the way to work. I'm a really easy analogy. Who is still angry an hour later? And you've now let that impact you and everyone around you for the next hour or 3 hours or 5 hours. It's like you've just allowed that to impact your day.
Right,
So
right, right.
emotions are real, and they're meant to be experienced. I'm not saying that we want to get to a state where you have no emotions. That's not, but life is pretty miraculous, right? There's
Yep.
amazing things, and it's meant to be joyful and, creative, and there is miracles around us. But at the same time, we work for that inner peace. And the more we work on ourselves, we heal ourselves.
And
The more we heal ourselves.
you also talk about like decreasing the negativity around us. Like you suggest that like we listen to less news and watch uplifting documentaries and comedies and stay away from the negative. And you talk about surrounding ourselves with positive people and experiences, being of service, practicing the meditation that you've been talking about, the mindfulness, all really aspirational goals. But where do people start? How do people get on that path?
It's with making a decision, Jim, just one small step a day.
Hmm.
Everything, we need to start actually adding these little tools that you just mentioned into our life. Small steps. You don't have to do all of them at once, but just can you make one change or highlight, you made a comment before, about the power of reflection. Reflect on something you'd like to change in your life. Is it, I really don't have much movement in my life. All right, then make the choice to get outside and walk, ride a bike,
Hmm.
you know, reconnect to nature. I think that is one of the biggest missing ingredients we have going on right now on our planet is we feel so disconnected. And it's not only to ourselves, it's to the community around us, especially post these last 3 years, which have been hard on so many. And we're disconnected from the earth. It's like we have to reconnect. It's like enjoy, there is bounty around us, but honor it and treasure it. And it's the same as we have to honor and treasure who we are. We have this physical body and it should be treated like a temple. And you look after it, you care for it, nurture it with kindness.
Well, that's all fine and good, but what about people who are struggling to survive, who live in cramped quarters, who have crime in their neighborhoods? They wonder where their next dollar's coming from. They have failing schools. They wonder if they'll have a job tomorrow. How do they break out and begin meditation when there's so much stress in their lives?
Start with one moment then. One moment where you stop and do a breathing
Hmm.
exercise.
Hmm.
Take a pause, sit down. If they're in cramped quarters, if there's too much going on, we still have the ability, Jim, to be powerful co-creators and to actually, in that moment, shift our awareness to something that is more peaceful. And that is an internal experience. It's not focusing all the things you just mentioned. They are all external things you just mentioned.
Hmm.
Focus on the internal. The changes come when we're focused on the internal. And yes, there is some incredibly challenging things going on in our world right now. And we, though, at the same time, with everything that's going on, I still truly believe in the ability of the human spirit to be what we're looking for. We do have the answers. We can be the change. It's no good to start pointing the finger at everyone else. We have to start taking responsibility
Right.
ourselves.
And I know you can do this when you say just take a moment, because I do a lot of corporate media training with very high level executives. And some of them talk about being nervous before, like, they make a television presentation or they have to do a video of some sort. And I always say, if you just sit still, plant your feet on the ground. You can do this wherever you are and just do some simple breathing exercises. I call it like the 252, where you breathe in for 5 seconds and you hold it for 2 seconds at the top. And then you let it go for 5 seconds and you hold it for 2 seconds at the bottom. And you can do that anywhere. No one even knows that you're doing it, and it will calm you down. And so when you say take a moment, you can take that moment. And perhaps we can take a moment, just a couple moments, as we close out this segment, because we're out of time. And can you give us, Tami, a sense of how we could get going on meditation, in just a couple of minutes? Because that's all the time that we have for today.
Sure. So, for those of you who are at home listening to this podcast, not driving, I'm going to suggest, please, that you just simply close your eyes and just sit with a nice straight back at the moment. Preferably have your arms uncrossed with your palms upward so that you're in a receiving state. And with your eyes closed, I just want you to focus your attention to the center of your being, And take a nice deep inhalation, just inhaling slowly and exhaling. And inhaling. And as you exhale, just feeling the body just sinking deeper into the chair that you're sitting on or the floor, allowing the muscles to unwind. And breathing in deep inhalation in through the nose and out of the nose. Drawing in more peace. All is calm. Just exhaling. You have this moment right now. And inhaling and exhaling.
You know, Tami, I have to break you there because I was listening to you on my headsets, my Bose headsets, listening to your audiobook. And when you got to that point, you have such a soothing voice. I started to close my eyes while I was walking and almost fell into the street.
That's not good.
That's not bad. So from now on, I'm going to do it, you know, in my sanctuary of my home. And I just want to thank you, Tami, for taking the time with us today to explain the powerful lessons we can learn about ourselves and the world through meditation. It was really very meaningful and very insightful. I just want to thank you again.
Thank you, Jim. I really appreciate it. And I think it's wonderful what you're doing too, and just bringing more awareness to everyone, and that there is possibilities, infinite possibilities, and we can do this together to make this world a safer, saner place, as you said.
Well, and if you want to delve more into Tami's teachings, get a copy of her book. It's called Presence to Power, I Am the Gift. And if you want to know more about her journey, go to Tami Roos, and I'm going to spell that for you. TAMIROOS.com, so that you can learn to relax, reconnect, and empower your life. I'm Jim Paymar, and you've been listening to The Big Shift, available wherever you get your podcasts. And thanks for listening today, and stay tuned for the next episode of The Big Shift. It's coming soon, so stay tuned.